A bailiff forced a 55-year-old black veteran to get her hair cut against her will. 3 months later, he walked into court and saw her sitting on the judge's bench. Denise Maynard knew how to carry herself. After 22 years in the Air Force, you don't enter a room without sizing it up first. You don't shout unless you have to. And you never let people walk all over you. At just past 8 a.m., she parked her navy blue sedan in the public garage across from the Jackson County Courthouse in Medford, Oregon. She checked the time, grabbed her juror summons from the passenger seat, and adjusted the smooth twist of her natural hair in the rearview mirror. Her curls, perfectly coiled and regal, framed her face like a crown. She wore crisp grey slacks, a neatly tucked-in blouse, and her favorite flats, the ones that didn't pinch. She had no idea this would be the last morning she'd feel in control for weeks. Denise had done jury duty before, once in Colorado Springs, another time in Tacoma. But this time felt different. The way people avoided her gaze as she walked through the courthouse doors unsettled her. No chatter, just the muffled shuffle of feet and the heavy weight of authority. At security, she handed over her ID and bag, stepping through the metal detector without a problem. The younger guard nodded her through. Then came the voice. "Ma'am, a moment?" It was sharp, commanding, the kind of tone used to being obeyed. Denise turned. A man in a faded brown uniform stood there, his silver pins dull with age. His name tag read *R. Klein*. Pale skin, jaw clenched like he'd bitten into something sour. He carried himself like someone who'd never served but liked to play the part. "Yes," Denise replied, polite but firm. "Your hair." He tapped his clipboard toward her. "That style might not meet court standards. It's excessive." Denise blinked. "Excuse me." Klein avoided her eyes. "Courtrooms have rules. We can't have distractions, especially not from jurors. You'll need to see our intake officer for an appearance check. Room 3B, down the hall." She'd endured military inspections, intel briefings, and border crossings in countries most Americans couldn't point to on a map. But this was new. She studied him, weighing whether to argue now in front of everyone. Then she remembered her old CO's advice. Pick your battles, just make sure you finish them. So she gave a single nod, not agreement, but acknowledgement, and headed down the hall. Room 3B was empty. No officer, no clerk, just worn wooden benches and a water cooler that hadn't been filled in days. Denise waited, 5 minutes, 10, then the door opened behind her. Roger Klein walked in alone. "There's been a misunderstanding," he said, flipping through a folder. "Someone flagged your appearance as a potential issue. The judge doesn't want disruptions during jury selection." Disruptions. The word rattled in her chest like a loose bullet. "With all due respect," she said slowly, "there's nothing inappropriate about how I look. This is my natural hair. I'm dressed professionally. I followed every requirement on that summons." Klein looked up. "The court decides what's appropriate, not you." She didn't move. "Am I being detained?" "No," he said, shrugging. "But refusing could be seen as disruptive conduct. I'd hate to note that down." Denise narrowed her eyes. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of yelling. Not here. Not yet. "I'll wait until a real judge tells me that," she said. Klein smirked and left, slamming the door harder than necessary. But Denise knew this wasn't over. Back in the juror assembly room, her face stayed calm, but her mind raced. She sat near the back, away from the chatter. Most people scrolled on their phones or flipped through outdated magazines. A few glanced at her, then quickly looked away. She recognized that look, not pity, but discomfort. The kind people wore when they saw something ugly, but pretended they hadn't. 15 minutes later, the bailiff called names for courtroom assignments. Denise was sent to courtroom 1C. She followed the group inside. The judge hadn't arrived yet, but the lawyers were there, one defense, one prosecutor, sorting through notes. Roger Klein stood near the bench. At first, he ignored her, scanning the group like a drill sergeant hunting for weakness. Then he spotted her. His lip twitched, just slightly, but Denise caught it. As the jurors filed into the box, Klein tapped his baton against the podium. "Before we begin," he announced, "some of you were flagged for appearance review. Standard procedure." Denise tilted her head. Appearance. Again, a code word for something else. "Juror number 12, he said, locking eyes with her. She stood. "Step outside with me." The room went silent. One of the defense attorneys glanced up, a flicker of doubt crossing his face, but no one spoke. Denise followed Klein into the hallway. Once the door closed, Denise took a slow breath. "If you're going to keep targeting me, put it in writing." He didn't flinch. "I've seen plenty like you think they can push limits. Hair, clothes, attitude, you're not special." Denise didn't react. "I never said I was. You people always think you're owed something." There it was. No more code words, no disguise. Just bare, bitter prejudice. "My hair doesn't affect my ability to serve," she said, deliberate. "What you're doing, that's personal." Roger stepped closer. "This is a courtroom, not a salon. That hair's a distraction, and I'm done repeating myself." Denise held his gaze. "I'm not here for your comfort. I was summoned, same as everyone else." For a heartbeat, he just stared. Then, like flipping a switch, he backed off. "Fine," he snapped. "Go back in." She walked past him without another word, but when she sat down, the air felt charged, like the room itself was holding its breath. The clerk avoided her eyes. Roger leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching her like he was waiting for her to slip up. The judge arrived soon after, a tall woman with quiet authority, and began jury selection. Denise listened carefully, answered honestly, kept her posture steady. She didn't want pity, she wanted respect. By day's end, she was dismissed, not selected, no explanation. As she left the courthouse, she spotted Roger through the glass doors, laughing with another bailiff. She kept walking, fists clenched at her sides. But her gut told her this wasn't over. It was only the beginning. 2 days later, a letter arrived on official courthouse stationery. "Due to concerns regarding appearance compliance during jury service, we request your presence for a follow-up." No signature. Just a time, a room number, and a threat. Failure to appear may result in further action. Denise gripped the paper, jaw tight. No legal basis, no citation, just vague bureaucrat speak, masking a warning. She knew how systems like this worked. They buried you in paperwork before they came at you harder. She could have ignored it. But she needed a record. If Roger was harassing her, she wanted proof. So she went. Same outfit, same hair, unchanged, unbroken. Courtroom 2A was empty again. The bench was roped off, lights dimmed. Only the judge's door stood open. 5 minutes passed. No one came. Then Roger stepped in alone. "You showed up," he said, not bothering to fake surprise. "Most wouldn't have." "I'm not most people," she replied. He gestured to a side door. "We'll handle this privately." "I'd prefer a public space," she said evenly. "This is internal policy," he insisted, voice hardening. "You were flagged by a supervisor. Standard procedure." She didn't believe him, but she walked through the door anyway. She needed to remember every detail for herself, for evidence, for whatever came next. The room behind the bench was cramped, more storage closet than office, folding chairs, a cracked mirror, old court uniforms shoved in a corner. The lights buzzed overhead. Roger shut the door. She stayed standing. "You need to remove the hairpiece," he said flatly. "There is no hairpiece." He stepped forward, clipboard in one hand, the other hidden behind his back. "Court rules require visible ears and neckline. Your hair obstructs identification. This isn't personal, just protocol." "Then show me the protocol," Denise demanded. "In writing?" I'm following orders. From who? Name the supervisor. He didn't answer. He stepped closer, and before she could react, his hand shot out and grabbed a fistful of her hair. Her body moved before her mind could. She blocked his wrist, voice steady. Don't touch me. Roger jerked back, then revealed the dull metal scissors he'd hidden behind his clipboard. Last chance, he said. Denise's chest tightened, but she held her ground. She knew better than to give him the reaction he wanted. You're violating my rights. He didn't care. With one brutal motion, he sheared off a thick coil near her left ear. It hit the linoleum floor like something sacred discarded. She didn't flinch. Another cut, then another. Her eyes never left his. When he finished, he tossed the scissors onto a chair, wiped his hands on his pants and muttered, Better. Denise didn't move. You're done here, he said. Permanently excused from jury duty. She turned and walked out. No tears, no reaction, but in her car, gripping the steering wheel, she took one long breath, not to cry, but to sear the moment into memory. Because this man had no idea who he'd just crossed. That night, Denise didn't sleep. Not from fear, from focus. 22 years in uniform had taught her. When you're attacked, you don't respond with emotion. You respond with precision. By dawn, she'd typed a full statement. Times, names, room numbers, Roger's exact words. She dressed deliberately, navy blazer, pressed slacks, a scarf to cover the jagged patches he'd left. She didn't avoid the mirror. She studied the damage. Then she headed to Fletcher and Rhodes, a civil rights firm in downtown Medford. The receptionist handed her a clipboard without comment. The attorney, Calvin Strode, met her in 3 minutes flat, early 40s, leather folder under his arm. Miss Maynard, he said, shaking her hand. I read your email. One question. Do you want accountability quietly or loud enough to change things? Denise didn't hesitate. I want a record for everyone who's ever been humiliated and walked away. I'm not walking away. Calvin nodded. Good, then we start here. He outlined the plan. 1. File a complaint with the courthouse ethics office. 2. Petition the State Judicial Commission. 3. Demand preservation of any footage from courtroom 2A. There were no cameras in that back room, Denise said. Then we use their own paper trail against them, Calvin replied, flipping the courthouse letter she'd brought. His frown deepened. This isn't protocol. This is a bluff. Someone abusing authority without a judge's backing. That's what I thought, she said. For 2 hours, she answered questions with military recall. The scuff on Roger's badge, the way he'd hidden the scissors, the exact phrasing of his threats. They'll try to bury this, Calvin warned. Delay, deny, paint you as emotional. Denise almost smiled. I've been called worse by people who did less. By afternoon, Calvin fired off the complaint, CCing every oversight board member in the county. He demanded an investigation into Roger Klein's conduct, the forged appearance compliance order, the assault with scissors. A week later, the courthouse responded with bureaucratic paste. We are reviewing the matter and will notify you if further information is required. Polite, neutral. A stall tactic. Denise printed it anyway. Evidence. That night, she dug out an old notebook from her service days, one with a page titled Things to Do When I Finally Have Time. Halfway down, study for the bar, exam. Apply to Oregon Judicial Institute. She stared at the list, then picked up a pen and unchecked both boxes. Not because she was ready, because Roger had taken her hair, but not her will be. What happened next wasn't fast. These things never are, but the complaint landed on the right desk. Wheels turned, slow, then steady. A courthouse investigator reached out to Calvin, not her. Meanwhile, Denise studied. Law books by day, judicial misconduct cases by night. Oregon's legal code had loopholes, but also yiwutitha. Calvin sent resources, mock exams, flashcards. What began as retaliation became something deeper. Osu calling. Back at the courthouse, whispers started. Roger Klein had worked there 9 years, long enough to be invisible. The kind of man no one questioned until now. Attorneys who'd once ignored Roger's comments now second-guessed their silence. A clerk remembered him sneering at a woman's flashy lipstick, deeming it unfit for civic duty. Another recalled his loud remarks about certain types lacking courtroom respect. No one had spoken up until now. Suddenly files were pulled, security footage reviewed, staff called in for hushed interviews. Then a supervisor caught Roger muttering something foul in the hallway, unaware he was being shadowed. First strike. He was summoned to a closed-door meeting with 2 senior administrators. When he emerged, his face was flushed, lips pressed thin. Still on duty, still smug, but he felt it, the ground tilting beneath him. Behind the scenes, the Oversight Board had launched a Class B misconduct inquiry. Rare, damning, and just shy of a full investigation. It meant the complaint had teeth. It meant the courthouse would have to answer publicly, no matter how badly they wanted this buried. Roger was placed on an unofficial watch list. No suspension, just more eyes. The oldest institutional trick, pretend to reform while protecting your own. Denise didn't wait for them. 2 months post-complaint. She aced her first mock bar exam, no celebration, just a neat checkmark in her notebook before turning to the next chapter. Then came the letter, plain envelope, like the first. But this time, no threat, and invitation. Jackson County Circuit Court seeks interim judicial assistants and hearing officers to address case backlog. Applicants with legal training, military service, or bar eligibility encouraged to apply. She read it 3 times. Calvin called days later. They're opening a temporary judge slot, small claims, mediations, political theatre. They need a reform poster child. I'm not barred yet, she said. Doesn't matter, your service record, coursework, even your complaint, it's all leverage. You're not their first choice, but you're their best one. She didn't answer immediately. She weighed what it meant to walk back into that building. Not as a victim, not as a juror, but as the authority. Not for revenge, not for power. For the ones who'd come after her. The morning she returned. The February air was unseasonably dry, cold but sharp with clarity. Same garage, same parking spot. The courthouse hadn't changed, the stone facade, the flag out front, the echo of footsteps on marble. But she had. Black judicial robe, tailored, hair grown back just enough to shape into even, close-cut coils. No scarf, no silence, just purpose. At security, the guard stiffened. Recognition flashed, but he said nothing. None of them did. Her role wasn't ceremonial. Interim hearing officer. Limited authority, but enough to rule on small cases hold court. Room 1, C. The same courtroom where Roger had tried to humiliate her. The clerk, a young woman named Tamara Hines, met her at the door, eyes bright. I read about your case. That took guts. Denise smiled. Took patience and a good lawyer. Tamara grinned. Well, welcome back, Judge. Courtroom's yours. The space felt smaller now, less imposing. Same off-white walls, same bench. Except now it was hers. She set down her notes, adjusted the mic, reviewed the docket, 3 mediations, a property dispute, a family case. At 9:01 a.m. the side door opened. Roger Klein walked in. Clipboard in hand, keys jangling. He didn't look up until he'd crossed halfway to the bench, then froze. The clipboard slipped. Good morning, Denise said, voice even. You're on time. His mouth opened, shut. The rigid authority in his posture cracked at the edges. Tamara watched, silent. Roger rallied. Judge Maynard, I wasn't aware you'd... Confirmed last week, she said, flipping a page. Temporary hearing officer. I'll be presiding here for the next 6 weeks. A beat. He didn't move. She looked up. "You're not needed in this courtroom today. Report to 4B instead." No threats, no dramatics, just the law. Spoken plainly. Roger stood another second, then nodded, once, and turned. He didn't slam the door this time. The day passed smoothly. Each case handled with the steadiness of someone who understood. Structure over spectacle. But the real impact wasn't inside the courtroom. It was in the whispers down the halls, bailiffs lingering near the door, attorneys peering through the window. Denise didn't acknowledge them. This wasn't about making a scene. It was about standing where they'd tried to erase her. Roger never returned to room 1C, not the next day, not the next week. In a building where whispers travelled faster than memos, no one wanted to be the one caught crossing Judge Maynard. But Denise wasn't hunting ghosts. She had mediations to oversee, rulings to draft, and a backlog of cases that had nothing to do with her past. Yet justice has a way of circling back on its own. 3 weeks into her assignment, a soft knock interrupted her office quiet. Tamara stood there, holding a sealed envelope. "From admin," she murmured. Inside, a disciplinary panel's verdict. Bailiff Roger Klein. Suspended without pay pending full ethics review. Multiple corroborated complaints. One more infraction, and termination. Denise didn't smile, didn't gloat. She filed the paper away, not from indifference, but from purpose. The system wasn't built to heal the wounds it caused. But this was something. That afternoon, she presided over a landlord-tenant dispute about a broken heater. The parties arrived bristling, voices raised before they'd even sat down. Denise raised a hand. "This room doesn't belong to either of you. It belongs to the process. Want to argue? Take it outside. Want resolution? Sit down." The room stilled. She guided them like a pilot navigating turbulence. Calm, precise, unshakable. No one left thrilled, but they left heard. That mattered. Later, as she packed her notes, Tamara lingered. "Did you hear? They're interviewing for permanent judges next quarter. Diversity initiative." Denise didn't look up. "Diversity isn't a buzzword, it's a requirement." Tamara grinned. "You should apply. People talk about you, not the scandal, but how you run this courtroom, like it matters." Denise paused, then scribbled in her calendar's margin. Permanent app deadline, April 12th. Not because she needed the title, because people like her weren't supposed to last in places like this, and maybe, just maybe, seeing her up there would rewrite the next person's story. A week later, a young intern named Marisol hovered at her door. How didn't you explode after what that bailiff did?" Denise's smile was steel wrapped in velvet. "Explosions make messes. Pressure, applied right, it bends structures." Marisol's eyes widened. "And never," Denise added, "let someone shrink you to make themselves feel tall." She'd said those words before, to herself, in mirrors, in barracks, but this time, someone heard them. Because the real victory isn't the system admitting it was wrong. It's holding your ground so firmly it can't pretend you don't exist. 2 months in, on a rain-slicked Tuesday, Denise sat in her chambers. The courthouse hummed with quiet. Across the room sat the folder that started it all, her complaint, Calvin's notes, the original summons, and a small bag tied with red string. Inside, the strands Roger had cut from her head. She hadn't planned to keep them. But some wounds demand witnesses. That evening, at a veterans forum in a church hall on Crater Lake Avenue, Denise stood before a modest crowd. No speech, just truth. "You don't walk through fire expecting applause," she said. "You walk through because you're tired of pretending the smoke isn't choking you." An older veteran nodded fiercely. A teenager clutched her notebook. Justice isn't always a gavel or a headline. Sometimes it's walking back into the room they tried to shame you out of and sitting at the table like you never left. The applause wasn't thunder. It was the steady, sure kind, the kind that lingers. Afterward, A black girl, maybe 15, approached. "Miss Maynard, at school they say things about my hair." Denise knelt. "Keep wearing it. The problem isn't your crown, it's their blindness." She squeezed the girl's shoulder. "Remember your name before they try to rename you with shame." No cameras caught it. No papers printed it. But that moment, that was the real verdict. Back at her desk, Denise opened her old notebook one last time. You win when you remain whole. Her interim role would end soon. The county might promote her, might not. But she'd done what she came to do, told the truth, held her ground, proved that silence doesn't mean peace, just that no one's spoken up. Yet,